So on today's Card Academy lesson, we're going to be going over half of what is Marlowe's retention of vision switch. Now, what's great about this is that it has a number of applications outside of a switch. You could use it as a vanish, you could use it as a false count, and I'm going to show you some different applications here on this particular lesson. So let's get right into it and show you exactly what I'm talking about. I apologize for my lack of professional clothing here. Living in Miami, Florida has its perks, and one of them is that you're always wearing some form of swim shorts. So the move in question is this. We have the ace of diamonds, we throw it in the hand, and of course in that action we change it for another card completely. Now I've talked about this many different times and it's one of my favorite switches. However, we're not going to be talking about its use as a switch. We're going to be talking about its many different applications as just a move. And the move is very, very simple. All we're doing is that we have a card. In this case, the card is going to be the one that's on top of the deck. We're just going to use our thumb to revolve that card on the upper left corner of the pack. So what we're going to do to make that card vanish is just do that, but in reverse. We're just going to take the card and place it right back where it started. So that's the action of the move. Now, of course, when we combine that action with something else, it's going to look like either a vanish or that we're adding cards to the mix. So in this case, here's how you might use that in order to vanish a card. Now, in no way are you going to fool anybody by doing an action like this, but there are certain applications where you could get away with this in the context of a performance. Let's say we're doing an invisible card routine where you want to make sure that a card apparently turns invisible and you're conveying that to the audience. Well, you can just do the move and apparently toss the card, catch it, and show the fact that now the card has become invisible. So in a way, it's a visual gag. Now, if you want to make the card vanish and you really want it to be convincing, then why not use a separate card? So in this case, what it's going to look like is no longer that the card's vanishing, but now the cards are merging into one. So there, instead of having a vanish, it looks like the card is being tossed inside of the card, and it's a very compelling illusion. All I'm doing for this, if you want to call it a technique, is that I'm just letting this card drop. So I'm lifting it and letting it drop at the same time that I do this action with my left hand. So when we combine that, it just looks like that card is being tossed inside of this one, and now we have created an effect. Now this is simply done in the context of a simple routine by showing that we have two twos. And we could take these two twos and actually merge them into one card, simply like this. So we've tossed the cards into one, making a 4. So it's a very easy routine, and all it takes is just having, in this case, the 4 on top of two twos. They all match in color, and we're going to lift all these 3 cards, but we're only going to show 2. So right now I have a card here in the back, and I'm showing these 2 cards to the participant. Then I'm going to turn these 3 cards over as 2, and I'm going to take this card, which is actually a 4, in my right hand as I put this card in position for the vanish. So now it's a very simple matter of merging the cards into one and showing the final end result of those cards mixing together apparently to make 1 4. So it's a very nice, compelling illusion, especially if you show that end result of those cards combining into 1 4. So it's a very nice way of doing that particular vanish and making it look like something that is visually impossible. Now this also works tremendously well as a false count. So let's say that we want to count 5 cards in our hand, but really only count 4. So in this case, we'd be counting that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, and that is 5 cards into our hand. But really, we've only ever counted 4 cards into the hand. So the way that works is exactly as it looks like. We're just simply taking the cards and placing them in that position and then placing them in the right hand. When it comes to the third card, this is when we're making that false transfer action. Now here you have a number of different ways that you could actually do this. The first one is the toss method, where you're just making it look like you're tossing that card onto this half until you get the next card and you do the exact same thing, but actually legitimately count it onto the hand. So you're going to do this with one last card, and now you've taken what is 5 cards, but really it's 4. Another way of doing this is that when you come to the third card, you're going to do the exact same technique. The only difference is that instead of a tossing action, we're taking the card supposedly in the hand with the right hand. So it's the exact same thing as before. The only difference is that, of course, that card gets placed in the position at the same time that this hand supposedly takes that card into the pile. So it just looks like this, just like this. So it looks like that card has been placed in the hand. Now, of course, we're doing this as we're keeping counting the cards. So that might be the only difficulty here, because remember, you're counting the cards into your hand. So then we'll take the next one and repeat the action until we're left with however many cards we want, but really, we actually counted 1 more than we actually have. Now, as always, there's a lesson to be learned here that's not the actual move. And the lesson to be learned is that don't just take the moves as they're presented. In this case, the original move was a retention of vision switch. And look how we've managed to stretch that by just doing what is half of the move? So we've turned it into a false count. We've turned it into a way to do a vanish. We've turned it into a way to supposedly throw a card into another one and have them meld together visually, all from the same move that would have been just dismissed as a wonderful change. So the lesson here is to take a look at your moves, take a look at what you already have, what you already know, and see how you can modify it a bit to turn it into something completely new. But as always, thank you guys for being members of the Pig Kick Magic Academy. I'm really glad to have you guys here, and I hope to see you on the next lesson.